Hi, I'm Kristopher Orr. I'm the artist of these paintings that you see behind me, the release paintings. And I wanted to take a moment and explain some of the inspiration behind them, as well as the practice of the space of artwork that I like. And I call it narrative cubism. That's not original to me. Cubism is a discipline of art that was made popular, especially by Picasso and Braque and Duchamp in the early 20th century. And Cubism is, at its essence, a disintegration of the subject matter that the artist is looking at and then creative reintegration back together. And it's in that process of the reintegration that really compels me. As a very spiritual person, as most artists are, it gives a moment for something greater to interact and come into the work than just a direct, what I'm seeing through my eye, to my hand, on the brush, onto the canvas. And there's actually a spiritual component to that. And so that often drives a lot of the work in story. And so that brings the other component of narrative. And I think it's very clearly documented. We experience life in story. You know, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. And we derive meaning from that. And I think especially in the age that we're living in, where it seems to be everything's becoming more pragmatic and faster. We're always trying to do more with less. Art has a moment, and it creates space for a viewer to pause and to remember what's really meaningful in life, and to take a beat and not feel like guilty for stopping and pausing before something beautiful and remembering our humanity. And that's why I'm drawn to so many of the subject matter that I deal with. Years ago, with the parallel paintings, that were in the Cruiser Gallery, now Auric, that were all about vulnerability and the vulnerability of small birds and how that parallels our own experience through holding the beautiful and the brutal in life after I lost my sister to cancer in a very short battle in 2022. And then the Animalia paintings that were also at Auric, that looked at the virtues of animals, and now forgiveness. And as I'm entering into the second half of life, I'll be 48 years old this year, and I'm starting to think about what really matters in life. It's not necessarily about ambition anymore. It's not about how can I grow a certain business or achieve a certain thing, but it's what are the relationships that are being cultivated? How do we become more human? What is real satisfaction? What does success look like? And often it can come back to the relationships that we have. And no one gets through this life without being scathed. The reality is if you're going to love, you're going to get hurt. You're going to hurt and you're going to get hurt. And so this is my meditation, my processing of the experience of what forgiveness looks like. From There's three paintings of small birds that are red, and the concept there was it's like a red warning light, you know. And I used to tell my kids there's an old proverb that says an undeserved curse is like a bird flitting through the sky. It only bothers you if you pay attention to it. And so each of these birds are flitting through the sky, and there's one called undeserved curse where the bird is breaking into pieces. And I was speaking to one art collector on opening night, and they didn't even see the bird at first. I had to point it out to them, and then they thought, oh, okay, they're starting to see it forming. And I love that because it really articulates the heart of the piece. It's talking about if you pay attention to it, you start seeing it, and it starts bothering you, and you feel cursed, right? But if you ignore it, let it go on its way, you don't have to worry about it. There's also three hands that are behind me in various forms and gestures of holding on to hurts and holding on to unforgiveness. And at once it feels like a strong hold, and that's the name of the painting, is stronghold. But at the same time, you're weakening that foundation of relationship. You're becoming less connected to the other people around you, especially those closest to you. And so the other pieces are about release. The series is named after that painting, the one that's kind of on the left here in the gold frame, where the pieces or the character is literally releasing that 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 unforgiveness. And there's a vulnerability in that. There's a life that can come. You can't receive the good that that is ready to come to you in life without first releasing and having open hands to receive. And the final piece on the bottom here is about, it's actually three hands that are in different gestures of releasing. And so there's a moth flying out of it, which I thought was kind of fun because of, getting old clothes out, dusting, shaking those things out. And also sometimes those wounds and those hurts feel so big as we're hanging on to them. And we actually give it some daylight and let some light in, we realize what a small thing it was. I once heard a story about someone who hadn't spoken to their sibling for years, and when they finally reconciled, they couldn't even remember what it was they were offended about. And it's so easy to fall prey to. Then the last three paintings are three different figures in different forms of flourishing. And center of gravity is one where the character is in this dynamic pose, kind of kneeling down, looking over his shoulder, aware of the past, but also poised to enter into the future. And it's this moment of choice, of decision, of trying to decide, am I going to cling to the past and remain in there, or am I going to embrace the future? And my hope and my prayer for all of us is that we will release the hurts, we will release those pains and enter into that process of forgiveness. I was speaking to another patron of the arts on opening night, and it was a beautiful conversation where they were sharing with me about that process of forgiveness. And it's not, I don't want in any way to suggest like it's easy, that it's a quick thing, you just drop it and it's gone. It's a process of constantly releasing and constantly receiving. And that's a part of being human that I think arts really help us deal with and remind us of, and create the space to be human. And that's a really beautiful, good thing. The other two pieces are about flourishing individually, but also one another is a painting that one character is helping another character up. And so it's, yeah, those are the release paintings. Thank you so much for your attention.